Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome in to another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conlin, and I am joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. Jack, the men's basketball team's to win the national title.
At this point, if they keep jumping up the Ken Pom rankings the way they did after that Michigan State win, they may be in unprecedented territory. I mean, if you jump up 36 spots every single game, at a certain point, you are like, what? You go past one and you become like negative 100, which in turn means you're like one of the best teams ever.
And whatever happened over the last day or so, they've climbed another couple. So they're up to 99th nationally in Ken Pom, which is arguably bigger than the Michigan State win. We've got a top 100 Ken Pom team in early November, Jack. Wow.
I love how much. I got a text from Bennett. Literally, as we might win this game, I'm more excited about Ken Pom dropping tomorrow to see how we move. All right. Let's simmer it down there.
What a win. What a win for the boys. But we got to do some, we got to do some housekeeping.
I don't know why you did. Well, first we got to get out of the way that we don't have to get this out of the way because we are pleased to say that Three Notched is the best beer in all of Harrisonburg, in all of the Valley locations in Charlottesville, Harrisonburg, Roanoke, Virginia Beach, Richmond, Virginia, and out in Nelson County. They also have new Three Notched bourbon. I got to try some when I went to Richmond. Absolutely fantastic bourbon that you can pick up that they distilled, I believe, at their Nelson County location. I'm not exactly sure on that, but absolutely fantastic stuff. Bennett, take it away about Minuteman Mondays.
Yeah, Minuteman Mondays is one of our favorite promotions here. Thanks for teeing it up. Sort of acids timed on the bottom for me, which I appreciate. $3 Minuteman pours, which is pretty darn exciting.
You think Tuesdays, you know this eventually.
Yeah, sometimes I remember it. Tuesdays, they get half off cases of the Valley Collab House in Harrisonburg. And every Friday, where we'll have our live podcast next Friday, you can join them for First Tap Friday as they release a new brew weekly. Very exciting stuff. Friday, November 17th, 5 p.m. I think the timing has gotten even better than we could have possibly imagined when we decided on this date at the beginning of the year. They're going to play, obviously, a huge football game the next day. But the men's basketball team playing Radford at home, I think, is a sneaky, exciting ticket for people in town now that the Dukes have beaten Michigan State.
Yeah, we have our tickets. We got some GA spots that we're going to be heading over to the men's basketball game once we wrap up the live podcast from the Three Notched Valley Collab House in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Come hang out with us. Come drink a few brews before the game and then head on over, Uber on over, get a designated driver to take you on over to the game that night. It's the second home game of the season. The home opener is against Howard, but this is the first, I think, no slight to Howard, but I think like the first – the true home opener. I'm already throwing shade at Howard for no reason. But the last of major pro sports kicks off this week, and BetOnline is your top source for all of your NBA action this season. MLB postseason, it's over, but they had it on BetOnline. NFL and college football, NHL, all of it is in full swing, or should I say full slap shot. BetOnline, your number one source for all of your wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. That didn't even get a smile out of Bennett. That was a terrible pun. My apologies. Get everything NBA at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access for every sport at any time. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use promo code BELIEVE. That's promo code BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. And where marriages start, well, that's over at our friends at
There's a reason Christopher William Jewelers has been voted Best of Virginia year after year. It's not just one thing that sets us apart. It's everything. It's the selection, extensive and unmatched, with every engagement ring, loose diamond, and fashion jewelry chosen for quality and brilliance. It's the service. From our diamond experts to our master goldsmith, our team shares a passion for what they do, and it shows. It's the atmosphere, both glamorous and laid back. See for yourself why people can't stop talking about Christopher William Jewelers in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave.
You're muted.
You're so right. I hit the little button because I was typing like a madman. I was saying this is maybe, well, I was saying to myself, this is maybe the most excited I've been for a podcast ever.
We were heavily debating doing it on Monday, maybe yesterday. We decided to stick with our normal time. There's a lot of ways we can start this podcast. We can go football heavy to start and then backload it with arguably the biggest win in program history at the end. We can start with JMU taking down Michigan State. Look, I laid out an outline, but I'll let you pilot this aircraft as we go on a trip destined for Shenandoah Valley Regional Airport.
Maybe we start basketball. Should we start basketball, or should we save it for like a middle and we have like a crazy good middle? This is all conversations I guess we could have had previously.
Well,
you steer the ship. I'm shoving the wheel back to you.
All right. We got to start with arguably the biggest thing that's happened in JMU sports history. Is that might be hyperbolic?
They've won some national titles, so I would say those would be rank ahead of this.
You're good point. Let me rephrase. Biggest game in men's basketball history.
That's got to be up there, right? And again, I was not living for when they had probably some of their other big ones.
Yes.
But this is a big one.
Since we've become fans, you became a fan in 2013, 2014?
2014, the last like decade-ish. I can't remember, the UVA game. But other than that one, that was like an NIT team. Other than that, there really haven't been many major wins at all.
Yeah, I became a fan in 2015. We suffered through probably, if you knew what we suffered through, you probably thought we were absolute sicko weirdos for continuing to stay on the men's basketball bandwagon. But it paid off with the win against UVA as the quote unquote opening of the Atlantic Union Bank Center after COVID. But then it paid off in this game, a 79-76 overtime thriller to take down number 4 Michigan State, the best win in program history, the first win against a ranked opponent since taking down number 19 Cal in 1992. I mean, there are so many firsts for this game, but I think we got to start with the phenomenal play of TJ Bickerstaff. I don't know if you heard them say on the broadcast, nephew of JB Bickerstaff, the Cleveland Cavaliers coach. I think every time TJ touched it, that was mentioned. But Bickerstaff finished with a double-double. He's a rebounding machine. He can hit it at an extremely high clip in the mid-range game. Terrence Edwards looked good. I want to shout out Michael Green because that guy has got ice running through his veins and is Mr. Clutch, and I cannot wait for the rest of his JMU career this season. What stood out to you about this game, and what were your initial thoughts? That I think this is more of a therapy session where we can just kind of go crazy about this game.
I mean, to have unskilled, herky-jerky Terrence Edwards take down super athlete Cohen Carr and the Spartans is unbelievable.
Wait, before you keep going, sorry to interrupt. Did you notice who didn't close out fast enough on Raekwon Horton on the game winner?
Was that Carr? That's funny.
It was Carr.
It's well, he also had one where they're like, he's a super athlete, and he had like a reverse layup where he like flew through the air and just like missed rim. And it was like he's probably still figuring some stuff out. But anyway, and then the stuff about I hated the broadcast, so that was part of what like the longer the game went on and the more the broadcast was like Michigan State's gonna figure it out. It's like we're in overtime. Like, I don't think there's a figuring it out. Like JMU's in this game and has a chance to win. So that sort of added to the win as a fan of the sort of Big Ten bias. And some of that was overblown a little bit, like after the game, when like somebody would analyze the result and be like, wow, it's a tough loss for Michigan State. And they're like, no credit for the Dukes. Michigan State's like a bigger national college basketball story if you're like a national pundit. So some of that was maybe a little bit of an overreaction.
Can we talk about Andy Katz, though, at the halftime show where he was just like, Michigan State's already thinking about how they're going to beat Duke next week. And it's just like, Andy, they are in the, like, you're watching, maybe this might be the biggest upset of the season when you're talking about it from a money line perspective. The Dukes were plus 1,100 to pull off that upset.
It's a big time upset. And I was just impressed by the fact that they kind of looked like they belonged. It wasn't one where like JMU shot like 70% from 3 and just had this crazy shooting night. They didn't shoot it very well. Michigan State didn't either, but they played really well defensively, which I thought gave them a nice chance to pull the upset and find a way to get the win against a Michigan State team that tends to be a lot better in March than they are in November. but I still think it was an impressive win against a really well-known program, right? Tom Izzo is one of the best coaches in the country, as Jack's given me the floor just to ramble as I please. But Michigan State's one of the better teams in the country. Coming into the game, 13th in Ken Palm, number 4 in the AP poll. This is a team that last year didn't have really their best season, Michigan State, but they did win 21 games and made the Sweet 16. I feel like that's the thing that Michigan State does. Even when they have down years, they find ways to put together really good, strong NCAA tournament runs and put themselves in position come March to be a dangerous NCAA tournament team. And I think that's sort of where this win is going to carry weight for JMU, as Michigan State is notorious for getting better as seasons go on, under Tom Izzo improving and being dangerous late in the year, where I think this is one that we're going to look back at this in March. And I don't know if JMU is going to have an at-large case in March, but I think the Dukes are going to be able to point to this and look at it as a pretty significant victory, a pretty gigantic win, that if they do have an at-large case, it's big. If they have sort of an NIT at-large case, it's also pretty big there. Huge win. But they also have to rebound pretty quickly, which I think will be an interesting thing. And as Jack comes back on at some point here, we'll be able to chat a little bit about the Michigan State win and sort of what it means. Says Google Chrome has crashed, folks. That's the text we get. He was maybe as choppy as you could be. There he is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, while you were gone, I was just saying that Michigan State tends to get better as seasons go on. And this is a win that I think has a chance to look really, really good in March. I don't know if JMU's going to have like an at-large case, but even if they're sort of scrapping for like an NIT berth, I think this win is going to carry a lot of weight, and they don't have a game like it the rest of the way. So it was huge that they got the win.
This is awesome. Trivia question from Ross OR11 watching on YouTube. Who coached the 1992 ranked team that JMU beat?
It was Cal.
It was Cal. Why is he important? Who was it?
Cal. Jason Kidd was the point guard. Jason Kidd injured a rib during the game. I don't know who their coach was. Ross, if you're still watching after whatever technical difficulties just happened, please comment who the coach was and why he was important, because I have no idea who was coaching Cal in 1992. Don't know.
But
heck of a win.
So
what stood out to you?
Now that I'm back and after all of that craziness, I think my Google Chrome crashed because I was trying to pull open the box score. And I think Google Chrome's run by a bunch of Michigan State fans. And so they purposely crashed it. That win, it was really awesome to see the transfers make that type of immediate impact. And the announcers kept talking about how this team lacks any sort of chemistry and all of this stuff because there are just a bunch of transfers that came together. I was shocked kind of with the announcers in that case that they were able to play such a good game in that way. They shot poorly from the field. They shot poorly from behind the arc. Noah Friedel, Julian Wooden, two of the better shooters on the team, were in foul trouble. Everyone else stepped up and played a major role. Terrence Edwards wasn't necessarily balling out the way you'd expect in terms of scoring points, but he was facilitating the ball well, wasn't turning it over at a high clip. TJ Biggerstaff, I said, kind of previewing it, was absolutely electric throughout the game, and he's showing why he was such a big transfer portal pickup. But the way that every single transfer made an impact, small or large, whether it was Biggerstaff, whether it was Green, whether it was Allen, whether it was Raekwon Horton hitting the essentially game winner, like everyone pitched in a little bit that was part of this transfer class that was supposed to really bring JMU to that next level. The reason this JMU team was picked to win the Sun Belt, and to see it kind of come together against a Michigan State team that's led by this huge aura that every single player who plays him is scared to go against in Tyson Walker. I mean, I don't know if you heard the announcers say it, but the JMU was in awe. They shouldn't have talked to him. They said that when Terrence Edwards really spoke words to him, that was a mistake. And it just goes to show that, you got to play the full 40. What a stupid thing to say.
You don't want to poke the bear of a guy who started his career in the CAA. At
Northeastern, not even like a good CAA school. But no, all in all, just like seeing everyone come together, and it wasn't a good game by any means. There was foul trouble, bad shooting, there was turnovers at inopportune times.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they handed Michigan State its first home loss in the month of November since 1986. I believe they were 73-0 heading into this game at home in November. Just maybe that was under Tom Izzo, if the years are working out. An unprecedented win for the Dukes in a way that I think if they play that game 100 times, they probably lose at 99, and they just so happened to squeak out the one win, and it was absolutely electric.
I think they might clip them a few times if they played. I think there's a chance that as the year goes on, they're just really good. JMU. Oh, Lou Campanelli. Should have known.
Oh, I thought he was our coach. He was our coach, but later, he had gone to coach
or earlier. Yeah, whatever it was.
It was earlier.
Okay, yeah. Earlier, yeah.
That's some great insights.
Just have Ross on the pod, and I can just go to bed.
Sure, it is 7:22. What do you mean?
No, but it's a nice win. I think they're going to be really, really good. JMU, I think JMU could be dangerous. Where it's one where I don't like if JMU plays another team like Michigan State in the NCAA tournament. If they get there, I wouldn't be shocked if they had another kind of game like this. Like they might just be dogs.
That was my initial overreaction from this as I'm watching it. But before it was even decided that we had won the game, but when we were going into overtime, or they had only built up like a 6-point lead at most, and JMU was matching Michigan State blow for blow, and it was looking absolutely electric. My overreaction was that they were going to win the Sun Belt. And now after they won, my overreaction is that they're a Sweet 16 team.
They could be really dangerous. The other thing is they kind of got hosed on a lot of calls. Not all the calls.
No. I don't want to hear it from you, Mr. Referee Apologist. I got texts from Bennett as the game's going on. These actually are foul calls. We're just fouling a whole lot.
Some of them were. Some of them they were hacking.
Defend yourself.
Clearly. Some of them they were hacking very clearly. There were a lot of others that were not fouls, and others where a guy would drive the lane for JMU, have contact that was similar to Michigan State's, and it wasn't called. But combined, there were 53 fouls, 32 of them on JMU, which is just insanity. How many fouls if you didn't, so they played 11 guys, everyone who played had a foul, which is awesome.
Xavier Brown ended up getting one.
He grabbed one. He grabbed just one foul. But even Roberson played 5 minutes. He got himself 2. He wanted to get his money's worth.
He would step on the court and immediately get one. Shout out Jalen Carey too while we're on underclassmen.
Oh my God.
He's gonna be good.
He's gonna be really good. He's super physical, which I love. I like what they've done.
He's also very large.
Oh, he's huge. He's like 6'8", 245.
His hands
are the biggest I've ever seen. He's a heck of a player. He's really good. 11 deep is crazy. And kind of used almost all 11. 10 guys played at least 10 minutes.
I love Byington and their non-conference where you're just you know what? All the bench. Everyone play. I want to say real quick, I said Terrence Edwards wasn't necessarily pouring it in.
Scored a lot, yeah.
He did score 24 on 5 of 13 shooting, but he was 12 of 13 from the free throw line. Just a silent 24 in my opinion, because to me, TJ Bickerstaff scoring wise really jumped off the screen. Mm-hmm. But his 21 points and 14 rebounds gave him a double-double. Friedel also 11 rebounds.
His energy was phenomenal. He was getting a little heat late because he had a real bad turnover and missed a couple potential daggers where I think fans are oh my God. But if Friedel, even if his shot doesn't improve this year from what it was last year, if he plays with that kind of energy, he's a valuable asset all season.
The Dukes won that game with their 2 best shooters combining for 2 for 9 from 3.
It's wild. And I knew Michael Green was a nice addition, but my God, some of the shot creation. Yeah, he was. Did you know he's from Bronx? In the game.
Did you know that he was from the Bronx?
It was
It was a New York City type of player. That was a New York City type of play.
The veterans that they added and returned were not afraid of the moment, which is maybe my biggest takeaway is they could have kind of wilted and you did see it the underclassmen I thought were kind of nervous. Carey had a couple plays where he looked a little nervous and then kind of settled in. I thought Quincy Allen looked super athletic. But but also looked pretty nervous. Like he had a couple plays where he just seemed like he wasn't maybe quite ready for that stage, but should get better as the year goes on. And then sort of the same with Brown. I thought there were a couple spots where he was like chucking from half court or something. I was like, whoa.
He's a very good point guard when he's playing under control. There were times Xavier Brown checked into the game and he literally heaved it the second it touched his hands. And it was just like, okay, didn't need to take that shot. But I'm really excited about Randleman from just a facilitator, old guy that can kind of steady the floor, mixed in with Michael Green, mixed in with Xavier Brown. I think the backcourt's going to be electric. I think the front court is going to be really good. I'm standing by it. They tip off against Kent State, I believe, tomorrow night. We're recording on Wednesday, so Thursday at 7 p.m. at Kent State, a team that is on a 22-game home win streak. But as you saw against the Michigan State Spartans, JMU doesn't really care about win streaks.
If they win that one, should they be ranked?
No.
I would rank them.
Would you?
Yeah. If you start your season, well, I guess they have a Sunday game too. So they play Sunday against Howard. If they're 3-0 going into next Monday, they should be in the top 25. Beat Michigan State, beat Kent State.
Has a team ever gone from 136 in KenPom preseason to a top 25 ranking? I know they're two different metrics.
But I know College of Charleston was chilling like in the 70s in KenPom when they got in the top 25 last year. Or something low like that.
But do you expect them to jump immediately into the top 25? Do you think the national narrative helps them that much? Because
I would. And they probably wouldn't. It might be more like a receiving vote situation. Yeah.
Like they get like 5 votes and then they start to chip away and move up. And
if they keep winning, yeah.
Is JMU the College of Charleston of this year?
They got a chance because the schedule sucks. Like they should win a lot of games. Even if they lose to Kent State, they should win a gazillion games this year. I mean, they've got so many winnable games, including in the Sun Belt. And there were some ugly Sun Belt scores on Monday.
What about South Alabama losing to NAIA Mobile?
They're getting blown out. Yeah. Sun Belt wasn't tweeting that one. They're like, look, we beat a top 5 team. And I was like, well, look at all the other games.
You remember Carlo?
Oh my God.
You remember the Carlo team we played 2 seasons ago?
Yeah.
I heard they actually went to Southern Miss and took down the Golden Eagles.
Is that true?
No. But you believed it.
I believed it. That's how bad. Southern Miss is supposed to be okay, so maybe they'll be fun. Maybe they'll be a little feisty, but I don't know. The Dukes are exciting through one game.
So give me, to wrap up this segment, give me your expectation, your overreaction after this 1 game sample size.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see them make a Final Four.
Okay.
I think I think the overreaction is that they're going to win NCAA tournament like a game or 2.
Yeah.
Because it's still hard to get there. Like it's still
so hard
because the schedule sucks, right? So like people are like, this could be an at-large. Like, yeah, if they win out, basically, like they're gonna.
Well, no, they have to beat Kent State. They can maybe drop 1 or 2 in conference play, but like they have to win almost all their on the road.
Right.
And it has to be like a net of 100, so it's like a quad 2 loss, not like a quad 4.
Because they're just not going to have a chance to get enough quality wins to make much of a case. But if they do get in, I think they'll be dangerous. And the fact that they go 11 deep with Justin Amati out for the year, comically impressive. Like I don't know how they got these like quality players to all agree to come when they could have looked at the roster and be like, oh, wait, like how do I play? And Byington's like, I play everybody. Everybody plays, which is going to be confusing come March, but it's also one where like if they have an injury or somebody goes cold, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Someone else could take the shots. And I think another important takeaway, they had good players on the team last year. Some of those good players were also like very shot heavy and could go on cold spells and be inefficient. I think this group has a chance to be way more efficient offensively and be like similarly, if not better defensively. I just think they're going to be like significantly better than a team last year that I thought was pretty good.
That's funny that you're saying that off of a game where they shot 36% from the field. I think they could be more efficient and they can shoot better after a 36% shooting performance.
Against Michigan State, though, like I think when you get Coppin State, I'd like to see those numbers rise.
That's a great point. My overreaction, is that they're a Sweet 16 team, not just an NCAA tournament wins with an S and a Z on the end of that one. I think Michael Green, who played 35 minutes, is going to be an electric guy. I don't know if he's going to slot in for Randleman. I don't know how Byington's going to work out that backcourt, but I think Michael Green has a real shot to be a first team all Sunbelt type of player. I'm very excited for the potential that he brings to this team. I'm very excited for the potential that Terrence Edwards brings to the teams. 3 assists, 5 rebounds, 24 points, and TJ Bickerstaff. I mean, it seems like they have a 3-headed monster, and that's not mentioning Noah Friedel or Julian Wooden, who the last few years, in the case of Wooden, the last few years, Friedel was brought in to be that 3-point marksman. I'm mentioning a 3-headed monster and not even mentioning 2 other could be potentially potent offensive players. And defensively, they looked just as good, if not better than last year. The reason they jumped out to that awesome lead was because they're just, I don't want to say the H word because another school in Virginia has that H word kind of patented, but the way that they're able to create chaos, maybe that's their thing. Chaos lives here instead of H lives here. But I mean, they created chaos when they can create turnovers. Then all of a sudden the offense starts to hum along really well. And that's how they jumped out to that lead. Absolutely otherworldly. I think they're going to dominate and the Sun Belt. I don't think they're going to lose more than 3 games in the Sun Belt.
Who are their 2 NCAA tournament wins?
I think they're going to be a 12 seed, maybe a 13 seed. Duke. No, Duke won't be a 5.
You never know.
UVA.
That'd be funny.
Who would be a 5-12 matchup there? I mean, maybe like a mid-tier Michigan State, Big Ten.
They do it again. They're like, run it back.
Maybe like an Illinois.
I like that one. Yeah.
Iowa, maybe. Iowa State.
Yeah.
And then their second win, I don't know. I think they'll take down like mid-tier power conference teams.
I like that. Also, something to keep an eye on, which isn't, maybe a sad thing. Terrence Edwards is a redshirt junior. He's getting a bag over the offseason. His final year has got to be.
I don't know. He's really
6.
unorthodox. It's herky-jerky motion, and the only reason he's good at basketball is because he just has a high motor.
That was one of the funnier things I've heard. It's like he's unskilled. It's like he finished with 24 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, like hit some threes, got to the line, was really good, solid defensively. And they're like, yeah, he doesn't have the skill. It's all energy. It's like, what are you acting like he's a walk-on? He's like 6'6", 200 pounds attacking the rim.
I do want to say, I tweeted this out after the game. We need to shout out Raekwon Horton. He's a 32% three-point shooter. Was 0 for 1 to start the game. His second shot in his 15th minute of action on the night. He's one of the least played guys on the team. They drop a play seemingly for him, and the 32% career three-point shooter just casually drains it. Unreal. I mean, that is amazing from Raekwon Horton. I'm very excited to see how he progresses this year.
Yeah, I like the roster a lot.
I do too. I love this roster. All right. All that good stuff. Do you want to move on over to football?
Yeah, we should move to football.
Or do we want to talk about women's basketball taking down Eastern Mennonite by 400 points?
They got a 12-point lead over a Toledo team that won.
What? They have a 12-point lead right now?
23-11, halfway through the second quarter. Playing stifling defense against a Toledo team that won 29 games last year, including an NCAA tournament game. Man, sorry, I was just going to say, I don't think they've heard back on the Heaven Bristow stuff, so she's not even playing.
Yeah. Oof. Women's basketball might be really good. You know who else is really good?
J-Mac.
Jordan McLeod on his birthday drops 6. Why'd you laugh at that?
I just love the birthday. I keep forgetting it was his birthday. It's just like a fun storyline to be like, happy birthday. He killed them.
Well, on his birthday, dropped 6 tutties on the Panthers' head. And am I crazy? But is he getting like exponentially better week over week? He always has that like one questionable decision, that interception on like the third. I was watching the game with Dom and Rachel, and we're sitting there and we watch it, and you see him roll out, and you go, okay, he can't throw that one route, and just boop, and you're like, oh, terrible read. I don't know what you were doing there. But outside of that, I mean, there was a moment where it looked like Signetti was going to put the clamps down on McLeod after that interception. But all of a sudden, it just opened up, and he just dominated the game. Career high rush yards, career best completion percentage, tied a career high, or maybe set a career high in total touchdowns. An electric game. Buy your Jordan McLeod stock now. It's only going up.
He had the pick, and then he had that like fumble where he got like stripped and it went way up in the air. I don't know how they recovered it, but some lineman got on it. And then like later that drive, he had like a 3rd and 12 run where he like scooted up the middle and got it. And they seemed to kind of like settle in. But you were there. You were there in person. They look really good.
They look better in person.
Yeah.
Like there was never a point in that game where you thought from a Georgia State perspective that they were going to get back in that. Even when it was 7-7 and after the interception, they doinked the field goal and you go, that was demoralizing for them. And then when we doinked the field goal, I was like, all right, that's fine. I mean, body language on the sideline was positive throughout the entire game. They just look bigger and better than the other team. And that was supposed to be one of the contenders in the East, right? Like those are my boys. That's the Panthers team that I've been championing this whole season, and they just went out and laid an egg, and they didn't look like they deserved to be on the same field. And also, there were no Georgia State fans there.
Yeah, let's go to that. You were there. From the images we could see on like social media, they appeared to have truly no one there, but what was the JMU turnout like?
I heard a rumor that was also their homecoming game.
Let me fact check this. That sounds horrible.
Vibes, JMU definitely were louder. Now, like from a pure numbers perspective, I don't know if like from a pure numbers perspective, they outnumbered Georgia State, but from being into the game, being involved in the game, tailgating, everything, JMU dominated. There was more purple in that stadium than blue. I've never been in a stadium like that before. From the fact that it was the old Braves stadium, it's where they had Olympics or something like that, to the Atlanta Braves of baseball, mind you. That was an MLB stadium that they retrofitted to fit a football team. I've never been in a stadium like that before. I've never been in a stadium with no fans before. I've never been in a stadium that promotes that they have 50,000 students to have 5 of them show up.
It's bad. Homecoming was on October 14th, so maybe it was a pseudo homecoming of sorts.
Okay, then that rumor was very wrong, and I just didn't bother to fact check it.
Well, I'll give them their flowers there. I love Sean Elliott after the game being like, they just beat the crap out of us.
I do love Sean Elliott. He is a great coach.
He says it won't happen again.
Good thing for JMU. They don't play Georgia State again because I believe him.
They do play LSU in 2 weeks, so I thought that was a bold take to be like, we're not going to get beat up front again. It's like, oh, check your schedule. Are you sure? But no, what a crazy, dominant win. They've looked unbelievably good since the bye week. And the part that kind of was wild is they stink on third downs. They were great on third downs. They can't run the ball. They ran the ball. They're fixed. They're back.
I mean, not the Marshall game, the ODU game, everyone was freaking out of. And I came on this podcast. I want to pat myself on the back here. I came on this podcast and I said, I don't think that was as bad of a game as people are making out to be. I don't think that was JMU losing it. I think that was ODU rising to the challenge and playing an extremely good football game. What are you laughing about?
I was laughing that you're like I was one of the people who was like, what happened?
But then I crunched the numbers. I figured it out. And there are different teams since the bye week. They pass more than they run it. They pass more than they run it specifically on first down. They have an extremely good early down EPA, a great early down success rate. And that all came to fruition against Georgia State. They had a 61% success rate. That's in the 99th percentile. Absolutely fantastic. They had a 64% third down success rate. They had 7.44 yards per dropback. And the craziest thing, they didn't do it with a lot of explosive plays. How this team was kind of created, especially pre-bye week, was a lot of explosive plays, a lot of plays that would go for 20 yards or more. and result in a big time touchdown. They only had 5% of their plays do that, in the 16th percentile. I mean, these are numbers that I might just be throwing out. It might just be absolute gobbledygook, and it might not matter to you. But this is all to say that JMU has figured something out since the bye week, and the ODU game wasn't a panic button. Oh no, things are going to start regressing to pre-bye week. No, they played their game and they won. They've put up 30 points. This is a damn good football team.
They're really good. And I thought McLeod running the ball was probably his best statistical day, but he also just looked the best, running through it great. I did not know that Lawton could do that out of the backfield in terms of catching the ball. 6 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown was really good. So Kalen Black got dinged up. Latrell Palmer also banged up. So to answer Tyler's question here on the screen, are we ready to say that Ty should be getting a majority of the carries? I think he probably will by default, but also, yeah.
I also think the reason he hasn't been is because he's old.
I think so too. Keep him fresh.
I think he came in with a lot of miles on his tires because he was the premier number 1 running back at Stony Brook. And if you've ever watched a Stony Brook game, they like to run the football and they like to get their running backs carries. So I think he came in with a lot of miles, and they understand that in order to keep him fresh for an entire season, like you said, and a potential injury to KB, they needed to kind of monitor his carries. And now for this final stretch, I think you might be seeing more of Tyson Lawton as Kalen Black gets back to health. I mean, he had 18 carries for 95 yards. Still no running back has broken 100 yards since the Bucknell game. Very funny. But the best EPA game of the season, negative 0.03. So essentially an even EPA.
Yeah, Lawton, to go back to that, Lawton had 457 carries before he came to JMU. Kalen Black, for comparison, was sort of in the 120, 130 range. Kalen, including this season, has 235, and he almost doubled that. So he was getting the ball a lot. So yeah, I think they wanted to keep him fresh, but he looks great. They just look really, really good. And then the defense has quietly just been unbelievable. And they've sort of figured out the secondary with Pons and Logan, both playing great. They're really good. I thought Meehan was hitting like a lunatic. He was really laying the lumber on some. Chuck Winicki did as well. They just played so physically that they really do look like a Power 5 team in terms of the trenches, and then sort of how their guys hit, and then the receivers and the running backs, the way they were running through contact Saturday. I thought was impressive.
Defense, 10 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. They did not create a turnover, but they held Georgia State to just a 34% success rate, negative EPA per drop back. I mean, the defense has just taken a huge step forward, especially in the secondary, and it's been awesome to watch.
Only real negative, I guess, defensively, right, is the Jalen Green injury. So he's going to be out for the rest of the season. What's sort of your thoughts on losing a guy with 15 and a half sacks this year?
It really sucks, mainly for him. To talk about it from a pure football perspective, it stinks from a depth kind of way of it hitting it. But I think Mikel Kamara is poised to have a huge step forward. I think James Carpenter. I think they'll still be fine on the 1 deep. Where it starts to get a little iffy now is the 2 deep, which is what we were saying after the Abby Nwaba-Kuakonji injury earlier this season. And they were able to manage that fairly well. The Jalen Green having 15 and a half sacks, I think that's more of him being in the right place at the right time, where the defensive line, it was funneling him the sacks. He's a fantastic defensive end and a fantastic edge player. But I think a lot of those sacks were more so the play of the entire line, and Jalen Green was able to just eat up those statistics. That's not to take anything away from him. He's a fantastic player. And the fact that this happened when it did is an extreme bummer. He's going to lose out on at least $1 million, maybe more. There was a potential that he was going to be a day 3 draft pick. And this is all projection. This is all just complete what ifs, but it was a strong what if that some NFL team, if he tested well, would take a flyer on him in the later rounds, which would give him a good amount of money. Now assuming it's a torn ACL, we went back and rewatched the injury. Assuming it's a torn ACL, that's about an 8 to 12 month full recovery process. And the NFL draft the NFL draft process starts in 3 months. So he's going to be signed most likely as an undrafted free agent. Maybe he gets stashed on an IR. Maybe his rehab goes exceptionally well, kind of like Aaron Rodgers with his Achilles. Maybe he's going to listen to dolphin sex noises like Aaron Rodgers is doing to heal his Achilles. I don't really know, but it really sets him behind the 8 ball, and it is an extreme bummer for Jalen Green.
Yeah, it stinks. Kind of agree with you where I think they'll probably be all right, but he was doing well, and in his one-on-ones, he had some really great pass rush moves where he wins it, he gets the sack, right? And some great stuff all season. Had the pick 6, just a really special year. And then I guess with his other injury and the way that timed out, he doesn't get the COVID year because he already sort of used the COVID year.
Which is kind of stupid. Like if you
that seems pretty dumb. I don't really get that, to be honest with you. So it makes the timing even worse because, as you mentioned, like if he's recovered by next November, like is an NFL team gonna? I don't know exactly what their patience level is, right, with an undrafted or late round pick to be fully healthy and how that impacts their roster or practice squad or whatever. He'll play professionally at some point, whether that's the NFL or like an XFL, USFL thing. He'll definitely do that. He's good enough to do that if he can recover, but the timing stinks and tough for everybody involved for sure.
Yeah. Moving from Jalen Green sadness, JMU has written a letter to the NCAA. What does this mean, Bennett? You were just on the phone with the College Football Playoff Committee. The entire committee.
The whole committee, not just the spokesperson.
They put you on speaker.
Boo Corrigan and Bill Hancock were like, "Hello, sir," and I was like, "Who is this?"
A College Football Playoff Committee spokesperson you sat down, talked with. JMU's written this letter. Does this change anything?
No, just to be very clear, because it got kind of confusing on the internet. They are still ineligible for bowl games with the caveat that if there aren't enough 6-6 teams, they can play in a bowl game. That's probably going to happen. The not enough 6-6 teams based on like most bowl projections and people who understand math more than me. Sounds like there's going to be some open spots. So that's exciting. But the thing that JMU fans are sort of interested in, right, is playing in a New Year's 6 bowl game, which you need to be eligible for the postseason. To be clear, like you have to be eligible before the 6-win nonsense happens to have a chance to play in a New Year's 6 game and be ranked by the College Football Playoff Committee. So that has not changed from what we talked about a couple weeks ago. There was some like vague press conference stuff that some fans had taken and been like, are they changing their minds? No, like very explicitly no. So they can't play in a New Year's 6 unless they get a waiver. I do think JMU writing the letter and actually like the school itself, the administration itself, pushing for another look at this, plus some of the lawsuit stuff. I could see it getting changed. I don't expect it to get changed. I would be surprised, but I think it has maybe a better chance of happening than it did like a week or two ago.
Yeah. The Sun Belt chiming in huge. But yeah, like you said, if JMU is in a bowl game because there's not enough 6-6 teams, JMU is still ineligible for a bowl game. They are just first in line to fill a vacated slot.
Yes.
So JMU is ineligible until we hear back about this waiver if they get it. If they don't get the waiver, they can still play in a low-tier bowl to fill a spot, but JMU is still ineligible. It all comes down to this waiver. JMU wrote this letter, and they quoted mental health. They quoted COVID. They kind of threw the NCAA's mission statement back at them. I thought this was an exceptionally well done letter from JMU. I want to get your take on this because here's my thought. A lot of people are asking, why now? Why are we writing this letter now? Why didn't we write this 2 months ago after it was initially denied? Why have we waited? I think it's two things. I think they're capitalizing off the 9-0 momentum. I think this has nothing to do with the Michigan State win, even though it was released the next morning. If you see when it was dated, it was November 6th. So it was sent the night before. So it had nothing to do with Michigan State. The shade they threw at Michigan in there, the Wolverines, I think they're using that too to their advantage, because in the letter they essentially said, how can you let Michigan play in a postseason for breaking these rules allegedly, and you punish us for following every rule perfectly? And I think they have a really good point in that one, and I think that's what made them decide to write this letter. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that certainly helps. I also think like the timing is never like an accident, right? So they're 9-0. This is sort of a area we pinpointed because Georgia State was a pretty tough matchup on the road. They play UConn this week. Like if there's ever a week to have a lot of distractions circling the team where maybe they don't play their best, no offense to UConn, it's UConn week, right? They suck. They're so bad. So like if you're gonna like have this floated out there and be a big talking point, now is the time. And then they're also very much in the New Year's Six conversation where if they could be ranked by the playoff committee, I think there's a good chance they're ahead of Tulane. They're not in the AP poll. I think they're one spot behind in the AP poll. But the committee does a really good job. I think they're better than the AP poll. They take a much closer look at things. They look at resumes in much more detail, and they would take a closer look here given the New Year's Six sort of implication of the group of 5 teams. And I think JMU has a stronger case in terms of strength of record, the fact they're undefeated, where Tulane has a loss. I know it's to Ole Miss, but I think JMU's resume is better. So that's part of it too. And then I think they kind of believe that there's a chance they can actually have a change, right? The NCAA sort of flipped on Tez Walker and his eligibility for North Carolina. I think they're wondering maybe they can get something to happen. They have sort of that lawsuit for the Virginia Attorney General that's been floated.
Said too much.
Maybe it'll happen, right? I have a civil litigation team, please.
No, it won't happen. The elections were today and yesterday.
But according to what we've heard, they're going to push it after.
It's not happening.
I think they could float it if they don't get it. I could see them floating.
They're not. We're not getting any lawsuit. I'm so pessimistic.
Float it. But anyway, regardless, I think they're pushing in the right direction.
Yeah,
the timing makes sense.
Yes,
we'll see what happens. I guess my thing, and I'm interested in your take on this. It's a joke that we're in like mid-November and the NCAA hasn't just been like, "F you, we told you the waiver decision." And the Sun Belt should be like, you know what, we're standing by it too. Like it's super frustrating that, and I know why the Sun Belt is doing it, and I get it, and they should, right, for the financial implications. But to be like, yeah, maybe in 3 weeks, maybe you will host a conference championship. And it's frustrating that the NCAA has not just been like, yes, you know what, we effed up the waiver, or no, like you answer.
I mean, it's kind of insane that like you can appeal, right? Because didn't we already appeal the waiver?
They had the waiver. I thought they appealed, and now this is just like another plea of like, hey, but we're really good. So
it's also really funny to me that the Sun Belt now, and I get why they're doing it. Like you said, this is all business. Like at the end of the day, unfortunately, college football is a business. It's hilarious to me how evident that is with what the Sun Belt is doing now. For 8 or 9 weeks of the season, the Sun Belt was like, you can't play in our championship game. What can I tell you? So sorry. That's the rules. We're following what the NCAA does. And now all of a sudden you've beaten the best team in the East in Georgia Southern. You beat maybe the second best team record wise in Georgia State in both extremely convincing fashions. And then your remaining games against the East are App State at home. And App State has looked up and down all season. And Coastal Carolina, and there's most likely going to be a backup quarterback again for the Chanticleers in that game. And so I think the Sun Belt's sitting back and they're like, oh, crap, there's a good chance this team goes undefeated. There's a good chance that they could be in the New Year's Six. Guys, we got to come together. We're losing out on $4 million. Come together. We got to fight for them. This is it's very disingenuous to me. Again, I get the business side of it, but man, they really didn't hide any of that. Like they've just been so business first this whole time.
And I'm not, some fans are like really mad at the Sun Belt. I'm not. I think the Sun Belt's pretty cool for the most part. It's just like a little irritating.
It's just irritating. Yeah.
My main thing is definitely on the NCAA. Like you just have to either like very firmly be like, shut up. Or you have to just switch the fact that they're deserving of a waiver. I think this is where some opposing fans get mad because they're like, why are you even still talking about it? Probably because the responses have not actually been that firm, and you've got the lawsuit floating. But then the fact that JMU is like more qualified for this waiver than any team has ever been, right? They've played the full FBS schedule last year. They're 17-3 since moving up. They have a pretty big budget. The facilities are great. Like they're clearly prepared to play in the Sun Belt. And that's why the waiver is there. People are like, you knew the rules. Like, well, one of the rules was that you could apply for the waiver. They met every waiver criteria, and it got denied without any explanation. Like, that's why JMU is frustrated.
kind of insane that the waiver got denied the first time too.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what else you have to do to get a waiver. I also think it's hilarious because it's so evident that the NCAA did not prepare for this. When they were making these rules, they went through every single possible way of going through, except for the one that seems like the most glaring, which is, what if a team's really good in the second year of its transition and could be a New Year's 6 team? And they just like didn't address that.
Like the college football playoff doesn't even totally, like, I mean, they've answered now that like you have to be, but it took them a few weeks to say anything, right? It was 5 or 6 weeks into the year. Somebody tweeted this at us, and I think it's one of like the listener questions, but they're like, is that even written in the college football playoff rules? I couldn't find it when I looked through their stuff. I don't know where they're getting the whole like idea that, hey, if you can't play in a bowl normally, you can't play in the New Year's 6. Did they make that up on the fly? I don't know.
I think so. They've been,
kind of feels like they did.
The college football playoff, their spokesperson has been awesome in answering the questions that you have sent them. So I don't want to like disparage them by any means, but it definitely feels like the college football playoff is like, oh crap, the NCAA made a mistake, and now like we're the ones left to figure this out.
Yeah, what are they? It's not their fault. Like the NCAA has just made it a weird mess, and it's frustrating. And I think like, I don't know that we have a lot of like opposing fans listening to the podcast, but people always get frustrated.
If there are, hey, how you guys doing? Drop where you are, what school you're affiliated with, and be sure to follow JMU Sports News.
Shout out to the Liberty fans who hate listening. But like playing in a New Year's 6 game obviously matters for the conference in terms of exposure and the financial money. Getting in the Sun Belt Championship is also kind of a huge deal and has like financial ramifications for like businesses in Harrisonburg. Like there's so many ripple effects that no one's talking about. Like if you can host Troy, that's another weekend that like every Harrisonburg hotel is booked. That's every restaurant is packed like that whole weekend. Like there's a lot of ripple effects here that no one's like really talking about, but it's kind of huge if you can get those games.
Here's an interesting take, and it'll be my last take on this. At this point, it seems very likely that if Troy meets JMU again in the Sun Belt Championship game, and Troy's able to win that on the road, and Troy doesn't drop another game, they could all of a sudden find themselves in a battle for the New Year's 6.
Yes.
So wouldn't you want, as the Sun Belt, to give JMU the ability to play in that game? Because at this point, it is a win-win for both teams playing in it. For JMU, they would assumingly get to host a game and be able to claim championship. For Troy, which is the assumption that they will be able to make it through the rest of their schedule with an unblemished record and play in that game. For Troy, it's their way to say, screw you, JMU, which I know every Trojan fan is dying to do, but they have no leg to stand on. But it also potentially propels Troy into the New Year's 6. So my take is that if you're the Sun Belt, regardless of what the NCAA wants to say right now, wouldn't you want JMU to be eligible to play in your championship game?
The issue is if JMU wins the game.
Is that an issue, though? Because Troy still wouldn't have – Troy needs that win to make it into the New Year's 6 conversation. So if they lose it, they're already not in the conversation. So what? They go from the New Era Pinstripe Bowl to the Boca Raton Bowl? Like, I don't think that's a big loss.
I think the benefit would be that your champion plays in whatever, like, highest bowl you have. It's obviously not a New Year's 6, but you would have Troy sort of propped up like they were last year when they played UTSA, beat UTSA, and that was still a pretty valuable win. So from that perspective, I get it. Like if they beat, like, let's say Coastal wins out and upsets JMU or something, they'd be like 9-3. You beat a 9-3 Coastal. That's a pretty decent win for Troy. They're still probably short. Still probably short of the New Year's 6, but it's then you can prop them up. So I kind of get why they would do that a little bit if JMU doesn't have any path to a New Year's 6, especially because going into the year that was agreed upon. It's like if it changes where like you don't even get the waiver, and then you're like, you know what, you're so good that we want you to just beat us up anyway. Like I think that would be the tough. But I get what you're saying because if Troy's close, there is a little risk reward there of like, hey, Troy, like get it done, and you with 2 losses might be good enough because you've already avenged one of those 2 losses.
And assuming maybe Tulane stumbles.
And they might, man. Like I think like the other
force is already tumbled. Like
if JMU gets a waiver, I've seen some fans be like, how embarrassing would it be if they lost? If they lose to like Coastal and Coastal wins out and it's 9-3 and then they beat Troy again, 12-1 JMU with 2 wins over Troy would still be in the mix for a New Year's Six, in my opinion.
Yeah. You just can't lose to App at home or UConn at home.
Yeah, I think those are probably end up killing. But like if you lose to Coastal on the road and then beat Troy again, I think you're in the mix.
Yeah. So here at the 56-minute mark, it's time for this week's 3-notched weekly preview. UConn comes to town. UConn, what, 1-9?
1-8, soon to be 1-9.
1-8, soon to be 1-9. Led by the fighting Jim Mora Jr., not to get confused with his famous playoffs father. Jim Mora Jr. was at one point the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks for one season and then got fired because he was terrible. And that ushered in the Pete Carroll era, folks. So this game means a lot for me because I want JMU to thank him for bringing in the Pete Carroll era in Seattle. All that aside, Victor Rosa, some guy to watch out for. He's the team's leading rusher with 432 yards on the season. He's one of 2 running backs with over 400 yards this season. And Taquan Roberson is their quarterback. He's completing a pass on 58% of his attempts, thrown for about 1,500 yards, 8 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Defensively, the Huskies, they are led by Jackson Mitchell, who leads the team with 89 tackles. And Price Yates has 3.5 sacks, leading all UConn players. Bennett wrote an awesome article earlier this week over on JMUsportsnews.com previewing this matchup. If you want the too long didn't read, take it away, Bennett.
Yeah, UConn's not very good. Is kind of my too long didn't read. They've got a lot of flaws, including in the secondary where they're not the best. Rosa, good running back. You mentioned him dealing with an ankle injury. So last week he was limited against Tennessee. We'll see how much he can play. Offensively, they just have a really hard time scoring, which is obviously not something you want out of your offense, the inability to score points. So that's tough.
Especially against a JMU team that has scored right. less than 30 just twice.
Yeah, it's tough. The other issue they have is that they can't really finish games. So they've actually hung in a few games, right? Against Boston College, they only lost by 7. Utah State, a common opponent, they actually lost only by a point. They blew a lead in that game. So
JMU and them have that.
Yeah, they have that in common as well, right? Blowing leads against Utah State. But no, they're fine, right? They're maybe better than their 1-8 record suggests, but they're not a particularly good team in any facet. They're on their backup quarterback because their starter got injured in game 2. They've just had a really rough go of it. They don't really have a ton to play for at 1-8 other than like an exciting upset. So it's one that you would expect a comfortable JMU win. I don't think JMU is dropping like 60 points in this game. UConn's given up 50 plus once. That was to Tennessee. Tennessee had 3 defensive touchdowns. I think they might have all been in the third quarter. Pretty disastrous quarter for the Huskies. So they've got some flaws, but they're probably going to I don't want to say they'll keep it competitive necessarily, but it's not one where you'd expect like an FCS, like a 70-7 kind of score. It's one, I think, that if JMU wins by, and the spread's like 25-ish points, if JMU wins this one like 31-10 or something, that's sort of in the ballpark of what you could expect. If they do blow them out, it's just sort of signals that JMU is continuing to play at a really high level.
Awesome. Look forward to it. Kick is 2 p.m. ESPN+. That brings us to everyone's favorite segment, News or Snooze, presented by Christopher William Jewelers. Bennett will give me 3 brilliant quotes, much like the brilliance of the diamonds at Christopher William Jewelers, and I'll say if they're newsworthy or snooze-worthy. Are you ready?
Yes. All right. Kurt Cignetti, first quote. I don't watch many basketball games on TV, but I was locked in the second half of this one. He's referring to JMU men's basketball beating Michigan State. They wanted it more, and they played their best basketball at the end. But there's a reason that the nation, we've caught their attention, and it's because of leadership and long-term planning that produces results.
Snoozeworthy.
Snoozeworthy.
It's awesome that he was tuned in watching it, but man, did that just sound like a pre-manufactured PR quote that was put in front of him by the communications department.
It does. I do love, though, his shout out for watching it. And I think fair points, though, that Jeff Bourne set them up pretty well across sports right now.
Oh, Jeff Bourne's done a fantastic job. We can rave about Bourne all day and all night. But man, was I hoping for a little bit more from head coach Kurt Signetti there about watching the game, and said, I don't normally watch college basketball, but when I do, it's the Dukes taking down number 4 Michigan State.
Yeah, kind of was having some trouble finding some great quotes this week, but here we'll go with a Tom
Jim
Izzo.
Mora Jr. probably not giving you a lot.
No, we'll go with Tom Izzo here on a good one. Quick one though. They outplayed us. They deserve to win. Tom Izzo on JMU men's basketball beating the Spartans.
Newsworthy. Did you hear his other quote too? Like how he started that quote? I told you guys this was going to be a tough one. I didn't think it'd be that tough.
What a guy. He sounded very sad after that one. And in his pregame for the next one, he was pretty bummed.
My favorite part was the announcers keep bringing up, it's going to be an awkward Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, because they're both playing in tournaments, dummies.
His nephew won't even be there, you fools. That's a good one.
Idiot.
All right, I got a few bonus quotes here, but we'll do one here. This is not a quote.
Wait.
Yeah.
Newsworthy or snoozeworthy quote. It was hard to find quotes this week. ... Okay, here are a few bonus quotes.
Well, they're so bad that
Newsworthy
I wanted to have volume here. Okay, but this one's not a quote. I just want your take on whether this is newsworthy or snoozeworthy. JMU will play UConn and App State on ESPN Plus rather than national television.
It's fine. That's not so there are a lot of JMU fans that are like, I can't believe we got demoted. No. We have been getting promoted. This isn't, you do not expect national ESPN every week. That is the promotion. That is the icing on the cake. Be happy we have the cake and we no longer are eating, fruit cake that is given to you at Christmas when it was on Flow Sports. Be happy that the cake is ESPN Plus. Also worth noting, and I believe Shane Metlin said this as well, but it's a great point. And it's something we talked a lot about at CBS when I was there. I was at CBS in 2020, kind of at the forefront of Paramount Plus, and when sports really became more of a streaming thing. You pick and choose what games are on streaming, not because of the ability of it to draw a crowd, or I guess lack of ability to draw a crowd, but rather for the ability to draw a crowd. JMU App State is a great game. It would live very well on ESPN2 with a noon kickoff. It would do well it would put up probably pretty good numbers on ESPNU with a 3:30 kickoff or whatever it may be. But it also will put up really good numbers at 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus, potentially driving a spike in subscriptions in the city of Harrisonburg, Virginia, or Boone, North Carolina. They're doing it as a audience acquisition measure, I think, more so than a demotion.
I agree completely. All right, bonus quotes. He's a guy. He's a young guy. He's fast, scrappy. He can go. He trusts himself. We trust him. This is my guy, Chauncey Logan, talking about my other guy, D'Angelo Pons. Is the quote that great? I don't know, but I wanted to talk about Chauncey Logan and D'Angelo Pons.
They had a great game. They have really stepped up big time over these last few weeks. Chauncey Logan has looked every part of the Heisman candidate. You hyped him up to be in the offseason. There were some low points for Chauncey Logan. He had that sophomore slump, but his play has really taken a step forward, as has D'Angelo Pons. So claps to you for having that cornerback, defensive back eye for talent, Bennett Conlon.
Did you listen to Chauncey Logan's press conference?
I haven't yet, no.
It's 5 minutes. He's awesome. He's awesome with the media. Did a great job. And had some funny descriptions of stuff. I guess he used to live in Rhode Island and then also Mississippi and then eventually ended up in Salem, Virginia. And they asked him why. And it was for family reasons, where they picked the middle of Rhode Island and Mississippi for travel to reach other family. He was it's not a 24-hour drive anymore. So it's good. I was I love this guy. He's the best. Okay. Last bonus one. This one's not pretty good. This is from Kurt Signetti, referring to sort of the waiver stuff and then the team having to play. The president's doing his job. Jeff's doing his job. I got to do my job. They got to do their job, because you got to be able to control what you can control.
That's a good quote.
Yeah.
That's a good quote. Put that on a throw pillow.
A lot of jobs to do.
A lot of jobs to do when you're trying to get a waiver. A lot of jobs. For what it's worth, JMU is still ineligible, folks.
I thought that was pretty well said, though, overall, where it's like they're doing what they got to do with the waiver, and we got to keep winning football games. And if it all sort of comes together magically, he didn't add that part, but I did.
I'm laughing at what you put for our next thing. Next up, everyone's second favorite topic, everyone's second favorite segment. It's time for the Sunbelt Weekly Pick'em. Bennett's the leader. So you ready to do this week's?
What happened last week? What happened last week? Was I perfect? Did I erase my gigantic deficit?
Bennett had a perfect week and went from being down 2 to up 2.
You were probably close to perfect, though. How did you do?
No, I wasn't. All right, shut up.
What a week. Do I have to pick first now? Is that how it's going to
go? We can rotate kind of how we've been doing.
All right.
Southern Miss Louisiana. I'm going with the Raging Cajuns.
Yeah, I also like Louisiana here on a Thursday game that maybe before the season seemed like it would have been fun, but it's less fun now.
1 second. I gotta write this down. For all of our podcast listeners, Bennett is doing a little hokey dance. ODU Liberty.
Liberty's a 13.5-point favorite. I've wagered a responsible amount of money on ODU.
With Bet Online. Use promo code BELIEVE, promo code BLEAV.
I also wagered a responsible sum of money on ODU money line. And I'm taking the Monarchs to win, mostly out of spite in the fact that I think Liberty is a fraud. If Liberty wins this one and covers, I'm going to have to admit that they actually have a pretty solid football team. So that'd be frustrating.
It's really annoying because I'm going to take ODU here. But, like, if I didn't have morals, I would go Liberty. But the fact that they're not just a church with a football team, I can never pick Liberty. They're a fraud of a school. They don't deserve to have a charter. They're an absolute joke to the educational system in America, and the Flames need to be extinguished this weekend by the Monarchs. Screw Liberty. App State, Georgia State.
Sean Elliott told me his team would never look like fools again. I'm not going to doubt him. So I'm going to take Georgia State to beat App State.
You know, a wise man once told me that Sean Clark is now coaching for his job.
He figured it out the last couple of weeks. They won 2 in a row. Somebody told him.
I'm going to pick Georgia State here because I think Sean Elliott has understood that he's coaching for his job week in and week out. Troy, ULM. Troy.
Troy, the one positive about not getting the waiver would be not playing Troy again because they're terrifying.
They're a wagon, baby.
They are a wagon. Troy wins this one comfortably.
They're a 21.5-point favorite. Do they cover that on the road against the Warhawks?
Probably. I don't know if ULM's going to score.
Wouldn't it be funny if ULM becomes the highest scoring team against Troy?
Put up like 35.
They 17.
Is that it? In Sunbelt play?
Troy in Sunbelt play, the most points they've allowed, I believe, was 16 to JMU.
I keep forgetting that Texas State couldn't score on them either.
It's insane. Yeah. Texas State, Coastal Carolina, 2 teams vying for their postseason lives. Texas State can't lose again, and they need Troy to stumble twice.
Yeah. If I was going to watch one Sunbelt game this weekend, I think it would be this one.
I'm going Texas State.
Okay, I'll go Coastal. I think it's going to be a quality game. Coastal's quietly won, I think, 4 in a row.
Yeah, and Texas State is a 1-point favorite on the road.
Yeah.
Arkansas State, South Alabama. Don't look now, but Butch Jones has the Red Wolves vying for bowl eligibility after crying on the sidelines just a few short weeks ago.
You think he'll cry if they clinch a bowl?
Probably. He seems like a crier. I respect
Probably.
it.
How does South Alabama have a worse record than Arkansas State? They're objectively so much better at football. I'm going to take
They're South not, though. I don't think they are anymore.
I think they are. I'm going to take them. They're a big old favorite here. I think they've been getting just, bad luck this year. It's a bad luck year for them. Chalk it up to bad luck.
I'm going to go Arkansas State. I think they're figuring stuff out.
That'd be sweet.
South Alabama is a 12-point favorite, so the fact that I'm picking a double-digit dog on the money line just straight up does worry me. Georgia Southern at Marshall. So earlier, just like 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was thinking, is Huff going to leave Marshall soon? Is Huff gone soon? Thinking that he was going to get another job at a P5. Since thinking that, Marshall is now 1-4 in Sun Belt play, sub 500, fighting for bowl eligibility. They're a 2.5-point home underdog against the Clay Helton-led Georgia Southern not Golden Eagles. They're just the Eagles. Georgia Southern Eagles. I'm going to go Georgia Southern here.
Yeah, me too. Marshall has 1 offensive touchdown over the last 3 weeks. That's bad.
Yeah, that's not good. I can tell you that much. Not good at all. So that's this week's Sun Belt.
Oh, you're skipping the boys.
All right, one second.
If UConn beats JMU, it is going to be the funniest thing for JMU fans. We're talking like New Year's 6. We completely overlooked this game.
You know what this game kind of reminds me of? Remember JMU Elon in the season that we were on the podcast proclaiming that we were like, this is the best JMU team ever. And then Kurt Signani and Bridgeforth snapped like our 25-game home win streak. JMU wins, but it does kind of have that feeling where we just like, screw this team.
Yeah, I think JMU wins too, but it would be funny. I think it would be kind of funny, to be honest with you.
I would be crying, and then maybe like 48 hours later, I'd find the humor in it. But, all right. That was this week's Sunbelt Weekly Pick'em. We already did men's basketball. We've done women's basketball. Toledo game is currently happening. A score update, but it doesn't matter for our listeners who are listening to this after the game concludes. I do want to take a moment to shout out that women's soccer got an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament. Absolutely massive for the women's soccer program. That goes along with men's soccer taking down the number 1 team in the country on the road against UCF. I mean, it's just been an absolutely otherworldly 8 days for JMU with everything happening across that athletic department. And I think the one that doesn't get enough credit, but it needs to get more credit, is the fact that women's soccer got that at-large bid. Amazing stuff out of them.
Really cool. Sunbelt related, South Alabama got absolutely robbed of an at-large spot.
You mean
16-1-3 won the Sunbelt regular season, and they were not the one to get an at-large. Is wild. But shout out, the Dukes is very cool.
Yes. All right, that brings us to the last segment of today's episode. Listener questions. Last time I opened Twitter, my entire Google Chrome died.
Let me ask you these questions. One of the questions was just to talk about volleyball, so we should give them a shout out. They're still very much in the mix as we head toward the Sun Belt.
I believe they peaked at 21 in the RPI. They might still be hovering around that in the RPI, but all signs are pointing towards volleyball potentially also getting an at-large bid if they don't win their tournament, but looking like that they'll have a really good shot at winning the Sun Belt tournament.
Yes. All right. A lot of questions today. You already answered one via Twitter about who had the steal to clinch the the win. It was, in fact, Michael Green. Very true. Okay.
I've watched that play so many times, and it's Michael Green every time.
That one and the Horton shot, yeah.
The Horton shot, like, he was a 32%. The fact that if he misses that, we're on this podcast just absolutely going at Mark Byington for that play call.
I'd still be pleased with Mark and the boys. But yeah, it would have been tough to like not close it with so many like open 3 dagger.
I think they had 3 open 3s to finish the game, and they hit 1 of them.
Yeah. Gosh.
2 of them were taken by your sharpshooter transfer that you brought in last season.
He'll figure it out.
He will.
Not Jimmy Fallon asked, this is one we kind of got to earlier. Since we care about rules so much, where does it state that a team that becomes bowl eligible through a lack of bowl eligible teams cannot be considered? I assume that means New Year's 6. And if it's not a formal policy, on what basis are they making that decision? And don't we care about the rules as written? That's a fair point.
You know, though, it's the college football playoff, and they like kind of make the rules. So
right, they just sort of run themselves, right? So they can Okay. From John Butler, in your opinion, which opposing fan base has been the saltiest on social media about JMU pursuing a waiver?
App State. I think App and Troy a little bit, but I think Troy's also chomping at the bit to like play us again. I think it's
true.
App State. There's just one App State fan that literally all the time's like, you guys signed up knowing the rules. No, you can't go back on it now. And it's like, you clearly don't understand at all this process.
Liberty too, a decent amount for a non-Sunbelt school, but they kind of come at JMU for everything.
I've surprisingly not gotten on the Liberty hate train. Like the Liberty fans haven't found my Twitter account yet. Probably because I'm sub 1,000 followers.
I went out of my way a couple weekends ago to
debate them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
This is a good one from Steak Sauce.
Steak Sauce, A1.
All right. At this point in the season,
wait. Do you think Steak Sauce uses A1 or Heinz 57?
Steak Sauce, please reply telling us what steak sauce you use.
Please, and thank you. Carry on.
All right. At this point in the season, would you rather have A, Jordan McLeod, B, Todd Centeio, C, Ben DiNucci, D, Brian Shore, and E, Cole Johnson? You can have all of them.
Or A, B, C, D, E, F, all of the above. Call me crazy. I'm going to say Ben DiNucci.
That'd be a fun one. Yeah. DiNucci's
I
a
think
good
Todd's
one.
the best, though.
I'd probably go Todd. Unless we're talking about like current day in which DiNucci's played some pro ball. So
I mean, hey, only one of them has ever been on a practice squad in the NFL.
Only one of them has probably ever started on, was it Sunday night or Monday Night Football?
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, you can't really go wrong with any of them, but I also I'm pretty pleased with McLeod.
I'm very pleased with McLeod. He's getting exponentially better every single week. I think he's one of the top quarterbacks. I think he's in the running, if not the front runner, for Sunbelt Player of the Year, Sunbelt Offensive Player of the Year. I'm going to some quarterback stats now, so I'm going to ramble a little bit as this all loads on my end. But Jordan McLeod is absolutely electric. He is currently third in the conference in total EPA. He's third in the conference in EPA per attempt. He is near the top, I believe, second in yards per completion, and he doesn't get sacked all that often. He is the lowest in the Sun Belt in sack percentage, meaning his offensive line's damn good, but he also evades sacks at a really solid clip. It also helps that he gets pressured the third least in the Sun Belt, 28%. But I mean, overall, he is just one of the best quarterbacks. And I don't think it's particularly close.
Yeah, and with McCall sort of out of the mix, it gives him a good chance.
Here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who has the best EPA per attempt in the entire Sun Belt? Jordan McLeod's third.
Finley?
Finley is 1, 2, 3, 4, sixth.
Best EPA per play. It's gonna be something stupid. It's gonna be like Gunnar Watson.
Gunnar Watson is fifth. Granger is eighth.
I have no idea.
Joey Aguilar,
He's a baller.
So of the top three, two of them started the season as the backup, McLeod and Aguilar.
Wow. Who's two?
Jalen Rayner, the quarterback for Arkansas State. Hilariously, he leads the Sun Belt by 2 full yards in average depth of target. Guess what his average depth of target is?
Is he their quarterback?
He has 177 attempts.
Who is this?
He's the only quarterback listed for Arkansas State, Jalen Rayner.
Okay. I really know nothing about that team. I was like, who? At first, I thought you said Jalen Rager. I was like, that's a receiver. TCU bust in the NFL. All right. Whatever. That makes me think EPA per play is busted. You got Aguilar and Jalen Rayner up there. Okay. From Daniel Merriman.
No. What was his average depth of target?
Oh, you asked me to guess something? I just thought it was high. Is 12 yards.
Yes, that's insane.
That is insane. All right. Now moving on to Daniel Merriman. If JMU men's and women's basketball make postseason noise, does JMU have a case for the best athletic department in all of mid-major D1? Great caveat there. I saw some people saying JMU had a better athletic department than Virginia. No.
No. The caveat makes it, I think they have a shot. I'm trying to think of who has a great football program and basketball program at the mid-major level in the FBS.
San Diego State in previous years, they kind of suck in football is usually a good one, right? Because basketball, what they played in the championship game last year for men.
Yeah.
And they're women and they play good soccer and other sports.
What a terrible, they're in the Final Four, but what a terrible game that was.
Yeah, we hate them.
Well, not, what game was it? FAU San Diego State, right?
Yeah, I don't even remember that one.
That was
the championship was bad. UConn San Diego State wasn't close, I don't think.
So was San Diego State FAU in the Final Four, and it was the worst basketball game I've ever watched in my life.
That was a close one, though. It might have.
Yeah, but it was just like 45
it was
to 50.
Yeah,
and it was
right,
like,
you're right.
This is college basketball.
All right, we have a lot of questions.
But so I think so. I think they have a genuine case, and I would say, but with my bias, that they would be the best athletic department in the mid majors. Villanova might have a case though, but they're FCS.
Yeah, women's team slowly squandering this basketball lead. It's 43-43 in the fourth quarter. Okay. From Grant Horan. How much cake do we end up having on our face if the NCAA somehow approves the newest waiver request and we then lose one of the final 3 games?
A lot.
I don't think it's like any. Well, it would be a little. Like opposing fans would definitely like dunk on.
I think it is because now we're involved. I think because JMU is now involved.
I still think though, if you lose only one of the final 3, you still play in the Sun Belt title. So like you still would have given yourself the Sun Belt title, and then maybe even one loss. I still think one loss JMU, assuming the loss isn't to UConn. I think they could still
maybe
be in the mix.
I think you got a piece of cake on your face though.
I don't think
with a little cream cheese frosting.
Maybe a little. I don't think it's that much though. But I don't know. What are they supposed to do? They're supposed to just lay down and be like, "Oh no, we aren't worthy."
If James Madison taught us anything, it is to stand up to tyranny, and that is what we're doing. The NCAA is a modern day King George. I think that was the king at the time, and we're standing up to tyranny. Nay, not the Federalist Papers. Instead, the Bourne and Alger Papers. This is going to go down in history.
Okay. Alex, 022975 birthday. I want each of you to pick someone different and argue your point, but which transfer portal player will make the biggest impact for men's basketball this season?
Mine's Michael Green. I think his ability to shoot and create shots from deep, his clutch gene, not sure if you heard, but he's from Bronx, New York. So he grew up playing on those tough New York street ball courts. I think Michael Green has a real shot to be a huge transfer impact player for JMU. I just turned on the women's basketball game and I'm watching it to my right.
Okay.
There's only one right answer for you.
Kind of a brick fest. TJ Bickerstaff.
Are you watching it too?
No, I just have the stats up. TJ Bickerstaff is my choice. I think he's going to be huge defensively in the post, which is an area I've complained a lot over the last couple of years. And what do you have? 21 and 14? Great rebounder, and maybe can score a little bit.
The announcers not once mentioned that he had a double-double.
He tied the game with like an elbow jumper. Like he's got some game toward the end of the game. He's really good. So I'll pick him. All right, Patrick McGrath. We kind of answered this a little bit. After that insane win, what are your realistic expectations for the men's basketball season?
Realistic, I think they are a contender for the – I don't think it changes my expectations too much realistically. Overreaction, Sweet 16 team. Hello, 3 losses in the Sun Belt. We're running the table, baby. But realistically, I don't think it changes much. They should still compete for the Sun Belt. They should be a top 2 seed heading into the tournament. And they should make some noise and play in the Sun Belt final game. I think that's all you can realistically expect out of where JMU is as a men's basketball program. But that is pretty great. I love Hazel. She only has 5 points tonight.
Dog.
She's going to take over the final 7 minutes.
Dog. Okay.
45-43.
Yeah, let's get this one.
Do we stay on until this game's over?
Long podcast. Well, we have a million questions. So this is from Kevin.
Kozlova's a dog. Yeah.
Kozlova is a dog. The @ is J.E. Pasta. I know we're all basically guessing, but A, what percentage chance do you all give us to finally win our last minute approval to the NCAA appeal? Sorry. B, if we win that waiver thing, what percentage chance for the New Year's Six Bowl? And C, if we lose, what percentage chance of making a bowl anyway? That seems like it's going to be a bowl anyway, like regardless of if they lose, that doesn't matter really.
I'm going to say 99% chance that are bowling regardless.
Yeah.
So C's a 99%. What was A, the chance they get the waiver?
Yeah.
5%. If they get the waiver, what are the odds they play? What ball movement from Toledo? Brick squad. Sorry. If they get the waiver, I think there's a 60% chance they're playing in a New Year's Six Bowl.
They got a good chance. Yeah,
60% is more than 50.
Yeah, no, I was agreeing with you. I was
okay,
excited about the possibility. Like if they get the waiver, it's going to be the craziest finish to the year that anyone's ever experienced in their lifetime. Ryan, JMU, 2018. As Jalen Green is now out for the year, does he still win Defensive Player of the Year? Interesting question. Or is there someone else in the league that you think it could be? Also, if McLeod continues to play the way he did in Atlanta, minus the pick, is he a lock for Offensive Player of the Year or Player of the Year?
I think we're overanalyzing the pick.
I would agree. He can keep throwing picks if he scores like 6 touchdowns a game.
I also don't think like a pick's the worst thing that happens in football. That one was bad, but like the Benvenucci Colgate game, there was one interception of his 5 in that game. That wasn't really a bad interception because it was right before the half and it was a Hail Mary heave that just ended the half. If it's a 3rd and long and it's an absolute Hail Mary heave that goes deep and it's an interception, that's essentially a punt. But I won't get into like the behind the scenes inner thinkings of my mind when it comes to interceptions. I think we're overanalyzing Jordan McLeod. He's gotten better each and every week. So if he continues the same trajectory that he's been on really since the bye week, yes, he is the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year. Jalen Green would be awesome to be the Defensive Player of the Year, but I think Jason Henderson, the linebacker for ODU, who already has 500 tackles this season, likely will be the winner.
He's got a good chance. Yeah, he's got so many tackles.
If Green stayed healthy and got 20, yes, he's the Defensive Player of the Year.
I think so too. All right, sort of a follow-up to that from Shane Molderig. With Jalen Green out, can we still be dominant on defense and win out?
Yes.
Do you think a rematch with Troy in the Sun Belt Championship will be more difficult than the first time around since they've seemed to improve a lot offensively too, and Jalen would be out?
I think we've improved a lot offensively since that game.
That game would be so good.
That would be a fantastic game. I think our defensive line doesn't really take a huge step back with his departure. It's going to hurt, but I think with the likes of Carpenter, Kamara, Tyreek Tucker, who else am I forgetting on that line? Emmanuel Bush. I think they'll be fine. There will be a slight step back because you just lost a first-team all-conference player, but I don't think it's going to be like a massive step back where all of a sudden they're allowing 200 rush yards a game.
Oh.
Did they just drain this 3? They did.
Down 1. Women's basketball team down 1.
4.5 to go.
4.5 to go. They're scrapping. I think that was all our questions.
Okay. Anything else you got to add before we get up on out of here?
There's a lot of questions. There's a long podcast. Crossover season is lengthy.
Especially when there's just history being made on the women's soccer front, on the men's basketball front. So we will continue watching this women's basketball game, but hopefully it ends up with a win. Jamea Hazel just
no.
They're going to hit a 3 here, aren't they? Oh, yeah. Wide
open. God.
All right.
I'm
so
out. Yeah.
For Bennett Conlon, I'm Jack Fitzpatrick. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.